Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. Joe, how many times do I have to say it? I feel like a big fat kid in a steakhouse, and the server's coming over, giving me the biggest ribeye my mind could concoct. A 15-year-old kid, I know because I have a 15-year-old, they can imagine a rather large steak with a rather large baked potato. It's all out there. It's like these leftists and these crazy. Let me take back leftists, Joe. Let me say the crazies, okay? Because that's a lot of what's going on. And we're going to show a lot of that tonight because we got some clips for you. In fact, you want to know what? Here's the kind of crazy we're talking about.
The guy has any brains at all. First of all, he's a drunk, then he's a junkie. Now, I don't know what's worse. Don't ask me, ask Sullivan. And what happens? He calls me up and he says, hey man, I got busted in the border. I need $5,000 bail, you know? Wait a second. I said $5,000, man. I said, hey man, I never even seen $5,000 in my life. So don't ask me for it, man. Why don't you ask your mother?
I'll tell you one thing about that clip. Aside from the content, John Belushi, God rest his soul. I really hope he's in heaven. I really like it. He was a tormented guy. I know a little bit about him. And certainly addictions don't help. He was not only a funny guy, Joe, he was a fantastic actor. People don't know that about him. When he was coming up in Chicago, okay, he was studying as a serious actor. That clip, anybody who's not a real actor can't do that clip. But in the meantime, it's John Belushi, and he was insane, all right? And he makes you laugh. But that's what we're dealing with. That clip is perfect for everything that we're dealing with because you have insanity. Now you have insanity obviously going on north of the border, all right, in Canada. And I'm going to want you to get into this because I guess there's so much insanity up there, Joe. People have to have a little bit of fun, all right? So we're going to get into that. And then we got to, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, if you want to laugh a little bit, we have to bring it home to the United States. And we got a bunch of stuff to show you there. And something not so funny from Elon Musk. And I'll tell you, I'm going to say it, Joe, until the audience gets tired of me saying it. Okay, here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Elon Musk is a guy that would disagree with Joe and I probably 7 out of 10 times. And I like that guy. And he's got a lot to say. He's got a keen eye. I only hope he elevates it a little bit more, but we'll get into that in a little while. But here's the thing, Joe. I want you to get into this a little bit. So now there's a bet going on between Danielle Smith and I forgot his name, so you're going to have to
David Eby.
David Eby. I'm just going to throw it over to you, and I'm going to be your color guy on this, Joe, because the bottom line is, again, a little levity in Canada might be what's needed at this point.
Well, obviously, hockey is the great unifier of Canada. We have the Vancouver-Edmonton series, Canucks versus Oilers. We have BC versus Alberta. And as Joe said, the premier of British Columbia is David Eby.
Joe, by the way, I just want to mention as a completely irrelevant factoid, okay? Hockey is so popular that even in Newark, New Jersey, there was a recognized street hockey team named the Newark Riots. I'm not kidding you about that. Listen, a lot of people like hockey, not just in the Midwest and in up in Canada. But go ahead.
But clearly, you couldn't get more different as far as political styles as David Eby and Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith and Alberta is very conservative. BC is very liberal. But they seem to have like a little friendly thing going on. Basically, they have a bet, and it's the loser has to deliver a statement to the legislature written by the winner wearing the other team's jersey. This is what I wanted just to say on this. Now, again, clearly different views, different types of people, different political, everything. Nothing could be the same when you talk about these two individuals. However, what I want to say is there's certain unifying things in a society. And ultimately, and I repeat this over and over again, we have to find common ground to defeat a common enemy. The common enemy is the establishment because they do not represent the people anymore. The debates are real. The debates are very real. Let's not beat around the bush. We'll just talk about how BC wants to distribute hard narcotics. Alberta doesn't. That's a real debate. However, if the system doesn't work, the debate is useless
Right.
because the system no longer works for the people. You got to get the system back to have a real debate. That's step one. And in order to do that, people have to find common ground. Now, who's someone who's very good at that is Russell Brand.
I
I
think
think
so. I would agree
Russell
with that.
Brand is trying to build coalitions. Russell Brand is not conservative. Russell Brand, if anything, is probably more liberal than conservative. But Russell Brand is fair, and he understands that because successful politicians build coalitions. You live in a pluralistic society. You're never going to see eye to eye with everybody. But if you want to get the power back, you have to find unifying ideas, and hockey is one of them. I think this is a good thing. It's something that regular people, the average man, could basically come together. And until we come together, we're not going to get the system back where we could then have a civil debate.
But
A
there has to
debate.
be there, but the common ground has to be common ground on very important things. You can't. Now, I agree with you. One of the things is a unifying thing amongst people are sports. Now, I'm going to throw this over to you. You're in Bergen County. When I left before I came to Arizona, if I went downstairs in the parking garage to have a smoke, I could see MetLife Stadium right there. We're both New York Jet fans. Okay. Here's the thing. If I'm sitting next to somebody who's wearing green and white and I'm in the stadium, Joe, okay, I'm not asking them their politics. I'm not asking them who they voted for. I'm just worried about whether or not, hopefully this season, Aaron Rodgers, who's hopefully will be healthy, is how he's going to do that game. And there's a bit of a common bond there. Okay. There's a time to talk about the politics and everything else. Now, here's what I'm going to throw to you. Do you ever think in your mind that's why the left is trying to infiltrate sports? Because sports are a unifying factor in society. We could find common ground. A liberal could love the New York Jets, and a conservative could love the New York Jets, using them as an example. And at least for that moment, Joe Rossinello, is this where I'm going? At least all the BS you could block out a little bit. I think that's why they go after sports, because they want to divide every step along the way.
Well, division is definitely part of their game plan, but I think the reason why, I think it was a miscalculation in this respect. Your client base will use NASCAR isn't for liberal ideas. It just isn't. Football, the majority of football viewers, they don't embrace woke ideas. However, the advertising does. You see, and that is also an example of how it's not about the people. It's about the corporate dollar.
Can I ask you, along those lines, can I ask you a question? Then if you wanted to form this coalition that you're describing, okay, I'm gonna throw a few groups out there. I'm gonna say moderate to conservative Catholics. I'm gonna say conservative and Orthodox Jews. I'm gonna say real conservative Protestants, okay, and conservative-minded others. Let's call it Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, okay, but people who recognize things like family, faith, all that fun stuff. Do you think that coalition is better served when it comes to fighting the government? Or do you think that coalition should come together and really, really show some power and do something about corporate America?
Well, ultimately, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. If you look at history and governments that have formed unifying coalitions, it wasn't political that formed them, it was pain. You see, again, right now, there is nothing in common between, say, myself and, well, a few things, say libertarians politically, but we don't have a system. What people have to understand is you could have all the views you want. No one's listening to them. Neither are your representatives. They're not listening to you. They have an ideology. They're using ESG. They're using corporate money. They're using the donors, and that's who they're listening to. So basically, it's just a show. Our Senate is a show. All those hearings.
Joe, let me cut you up. That's why Teresa's in the chat room. Hi, Teresa. She said traditional values are unifying. We covered that a few weeks ago up in Michigan, where the Muslims and the Christians and the Catholics and a lot of people came together. They were fighting against the wokeism, the transgenderism in the schools. That's a good start, Teresa. Thank you for the comment. That's a really good start, Joe. I think you're making my point. The politicians are bought and paid for. Here's the thing, though. if, Joe, I know I'm being a little pie-eyed right now and have my head in the clouds, as my mother would say, but I'm going to be a little bit of an idealist. If those people, what would Catholics call those people? People of goodwill, let's say, for argument's sake?
Yes,
That's what we
yes.
would call the people of goodwill?
That's the coalition I'm looking
Right.
for.
You're not Catholic. We would love for you to be Catholic, but what you are is you are not my enemy. You are a person of goodwill.
Because I'll be
That
honest,
if we came together and forget real quick, Joe, and we forget about trying to fight the politicians because we know they're bought and paid for. But if we actually, as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million, dare I say maybe 100 million people come together, and the next time some corporation tries to go woke, say, you do that again, you're not getting any of our dollars.
You see,
That's where I'm going. I think you know where I'm
no,
going.
I understand, but ultimately, if you talk to regular people, they're apolitical. Most people are not.
But they'll buy that, wouldn't they, Joe?
But that's why you have to target them to get the power back. And you can't like beat the drum on certain things, frankly, that are going to push them away, because you need their power to get the system back. Then we'll have a real conversation. The conversation is nothing more than a show right now until we get the system back. Then we want to talk about abortion. Let the best idea win. But until we have a system, that argument is moot. Talk about the border, the argument is moot. And I'm going to be honest with you, 80% of the people fall into that bucket. They're like my neighbors on the street. They don't care about a lot of these culture war issues, Joe. They could care less. I'm just telling you, that's the majority of America. Does that make that right? No. Because a lot of those issues are important. They're not thinking along those lines. You have to meet them where they are. Like Jesus said, meet them where they are. Right. You want to get the system back? We need a coalition to get it back. But I'll tell you what, the greatest coalition, which Canadians are living right now, and we're going to live it, is pain. Pain. It's coming. And I'm talking about for everybody.
Joe, they're actually broadcasting it. They're not even hiding it anymore. They used to hide it. They're not hiding it anymore. Okay. I forgot who it was recently. I just watched on a podcast talking about Klaus Schwab and Soros and Harari and all these people. Joe, they're not hiding it. They're telling you you have no right.
That tell you? That should tell you is that our vote doesn't matter. It's now a government of the minority.
Yuval Harari sits in a nightclub drinking Cristal, all right, with his gay lovers, raising a glass, saying everybody out there is stupid. And you know the sad part is he's right.
Well, eventually people are opening their eyes. And again, there's certain metrics that matter. I was in a diner in a working class town. I was in Lyndhurst last Saturday. Mm-hmm. Two older guys, about 70, were talking. And they were talking very similar to how we're talking. They saw what was going on. These were not educated guys. These were not erudite guys. They were working guys, two friends. They were about 70 years old. My point is, that is what I want to do. We have to open the eyes of people. People have to see that ultimately your enemy isn't the person, even though you don't agree with them. The enemy is the government. The government is the enemy, and they want you divided.
I think the right word you used was the system, and the way I would see it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Joe Ressinello joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. If you're just joining us, please share this video if you like what Joe and I are doing. We have 50 in the room right now. That'll probably grow because it has been YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble. But Joe, you know, like you gotta these guys. They have to start voting that way. The guys you overheard in Lyndhurst. But here's the problem. The system is where I was going. The system is not, they see people hear the system and they think the government, and they're the major part of it. Okay. But the system is the government, the corporations, the media,
100%.
and what they're producing. I originally intended this, Joe, as a funny clip, but it's actually not in this context. Let me play it.
They don't have their orders ready. They don't know what to do.
Buddy, this isn't World War II. You're taking cover like you're getting hit with mortar rounds. You're at Starbucks. Like, just make their little caramel drizzle frappy whatever flip-flop.
And they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard.
Kid, I got a full mustache and beard. You got somebody's armpit hair glued onto your face.
Now, again, that guy made it funny. But here's the thing. That's sad. That's sad. I don't. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? I'm not
That's a
even.
boy.
Well, no, I think it's a girl trying to be a boy. That's what he said. He's got like or whatever the case might be. The point is the system, and this is where the sadness in my heart, Joe, because I'm not a cold person. You're not a cold person. In fact, we're the opposite of that. Okay, the system produces human beings like that because they don't even have an identity. And the thing is this: I would say that Jesus will save that person way before they save the person that actually drove them to that. And that's your politicians and your media people and the people in Hollywood that actually tell that young person, okay, to convince themselves of a delusion. And then when others like us and that bearded guy, the real bearded guy in the video, say, no, dude, you're wrong. You're way off. Okay. We're the ones trying to help that person. They're the ones trying to hurt that person, yet we're the bad guys. And that's a result of the system you're talking about.
Well, again, I just think regular people have to have a voice. We don't have a republic. The republic is dead, Joe.
Oh, it's gone. It's
No,
gone.
but not enough people see that yet. It's gone. We
Joe,
no
they will
longer
because
have
you said the good word before. You said the right word before. Pain. Pain's going to come.
pain, and as that happens, again, people then have to then react by voting together, because ultimately, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a razor thin margin between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Well, here, let me ask you a question. Okay, did 80 million Americans of different stripes come together and vote for this?
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at.
I want to tell Joe Biden, you're not suggesting anything, because to suggest something means you have a thought in your head, and you don't have a thought in your head. You're actually failing at reading the script that Barack Obama gave you and his cohorts gave you to go after a guy who, let's face it, under every other circumstance, Joe, if he did not take over Twitter, he'd be a good guy in their mind. But he's
Joe,
not a good guy in their mind.
This is the thing. He does have a thought in his head there, and this is what it is. What the United States government just did is, through law, through a fabrication, they basically said that TikTok is an arm of the Chinese government. They did that in an election year because a large number of TikTok videos are anti-Joe Biden and Democrat and anti-woke and anti-establishment, and they succeeded.
Right.
So what he's saying there, without saying it, is this, and he's tiptoeing around it. Elon Musk has affiliations with governments that are potentially at odds with America. Therefore, we will use the law to do exactly what we did to TikTok and get rid of it too.
Can I ask you a question? But if you're going to do it to Elon Musk, then you got to do it to Larry Fink. Then you got to do it to who's the guy that runs Apple? Tim Cook. Is it Tim Cook?
It is Cook.
All right, Tim Cook. You got to do that to all of them then. You got to do
Joe,
that to
they
the
have
CEO
no
of
problem.
Google,
Joe,
because
but
they're
the
in bed
thing
with
is-
all these governments too, Joe.
No, they have no problem doing that, because when the lie loses its power, they have to censor. Governments, Brazil has banned Rumble. They're trying to ban TikTok now. Europe, there's countries, but that's what they're doing.
I know, Joe.
And no,
I
but this
know.
is what he's
Hold on,
saying.
Bob Foot in the chat room. He said, "Is Joe drunk?" I'm not drunk. I had a glass of wine, Bob. That doesn't make me drunk. I had a little sip.
No, but my point is this. That's what he's saying there. He's saying that And that's what people have to, that's the danger, other than the fact that he can't even articulate a sentence. Now that's a conversation, but that's an old conversation. That's not the important conversation in that clip. What he's saying without saying it is we have to get rid of X because
Right.
we can't maintain the population. And people, again, need to open their eyes to that. Joe, they got rid of TikTok. It's gone. That was a huge win for the Biden administration. Huge.
Well, huge
Notice,
win for the oligarchs, really, at
but
the end
this
of the
is,
day.
and they're going, if they can, go after Elon Musk. Brazil is doing that right now.
I don't think they're going to be able to do it because
I
Elon
hope
Musk will take
not.
their asses right to the Supreme Court.
Well,
and
that's what will eventually could happen.
listen,
But my point is,
Elon Musk might surprise you. I remember back in the day, if you're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, please like, subscribe, share, help us out a little bit. I remember back in the day, there was a cover of the National Review magazine, Joe, and it showed that. Remember that, the famous painting of our founding fathers signing the Declaration of Independence, and they superimposed Rush Limbaugh's head on, I forget who it was. I guess it was John Hancock, the first signer of the Declaration. And the caption read, though the headline read on the National Review, "The leader of the revolution," something along those lines about Rush Limbaugh. And it was right, because Rush Limbaugh helped to grow a groundswell, going back to the 80s, by the way. It culminated in Newt Gingrich and the Republicans taking the Congress in 1994. But it helped to wake people up. Talk radio is still today a powerful tool. Talk radio, AM talk radio. Okay, and Rush Limbaugh helped that along. He was a major media guy. He was very entertaining. He had a major presence, and he influenced a lot of people. Elon Musk is that same guy.
I know that. That's
He's
why
that
they have
same
to.
guy.
That's why they got to get rid of him.
No,
Because-
that's what I'm saying. They're going to stop at nothing, because guess what? If Elon Musk, I'm going to say it a million times to get it through people's head. He's not what I would call, Joe, a conservative. But on free speech and on our rights, that especially our First Amendment rights, he is definitely our friend. I'll throw it over to
Any
you.
government that wants to control the people has to do two things, and they have done that in America. One, they control the education system from pre-K all the way up to graduate school. Full on from Hawaii to Maine.
Straight
Number
up.
two, the media. The media is a propaganda machine. Perfect example. Tara Reid in America, who accused Joe Biden of sexual assault, is now in the Soviet Union. She claimed political asylum because she feels she's going to get arrested, and she's getting death threats.
Right.
I listened to an interview with her with Tucker Carlson today. She is lucid. She is normal. She is an attorney. She is intelligent, and she is hiding because she's afraid her life is going to be taken from her. My point is this. Why isn't that a story on every single news organization? And again, but on the alternative news, it is. But most people aren't informed and don't look there. And that is exactly what they want.
Are they not getting more informed? And that's what the oligarchs are fearful of.
Have to get rid of TikTok, and they did. They succeeded. Next is Elon Musk. Next is Rumble. You do it, Frank. Joe, here's the problem.
But yeah, but TikTok might have not have standing to get to the Supreme Court, where Elon Musk will.
Will Justice Roberts even? I agreed. I'm not saying he's going to succeed. They're going to try because they have to. You see, we don't have a system anymore. Notice they just changed the laws. They changed the laws. They do. And it's going to get more and more and more exaggerated.
They just moved the goalposts.
That's right. And this is what people have to see. You see, listening to that clip, I'm not tooting my own horn. Most people don't see that. They just see Joe Biden stumbling. But that's not the important thing.
Right. Remember, the lines that he's saying are real lines. They're given, whether they're given to him or not, they're still given to him by Barack Obama and all that horrid crew to make that threat against Elon Musk. Like I said, now, just to segue for a second, Joe Russ, and I'll here at the front line with Joe and Joe. If you're joining us, we're on X, we're on Rumble, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Of course, Facebook and YouTube eventually will take us down, but nonetheless on Rumble and X, share. But share it wherever you're seeing it. Well, if you like us, we hope that you do. I might disagree with Elon Musk on a lot, Joe, but he's right about a lot of things.
That is overlooked by probably most historians is the role of low birth rate in the decline of civilizations. So around, I think it was around 50 BC, Rome passed a bill to give a bonus to any Roman citizen that would have a third child. So this was a birth rate was a problem in Rome in 50 BC. The Romans weren't making Romans. The same is true of ancient Greece. So there was a time from about 800 BC to 300-ish BC where the Greeks had a lot of kids and a lot of surviving kids. Like the birth rate far exceeded the death rate, which is why you had Greek cities popping up all over the Mediterranean. But then I think basically it seems to be that prosperity destroys the birth rate. So when a civilization feels like it has no meaningful external threat and is very prosperous, that is what causes the birth rate to plummet. Somewhat counterintuitively, you think, well, if you've got more resources, surely that would lead to more kids. In fact, it is the opposite.
Now, let me ask you this. How are you going to increase the birth rate when this is the kind of citizen you're producing?
They don't have their orders ready. They don't know what to do.
Buddy, this isn't World War II. You're taking cover like you're getting hit with mortar rounds. You're at Starbucks. Like, just make their little caramel drizzle frappy whatever flip-flop.
And they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard.
Kid, I got a full mustache and beard. You got somebody's armpit hair glued onto your face.
Sorry, that's funny. But here's the thing. First of all, it was at the end of the Civil War, the Roman Civil War, which lasted about 100 years. I'm not correcting Elon Musk, just to clarify it. Augustus came to power in about 27 BC, and it was that basically was the end of the Roman Civil War. And yeah, one of the things he said was, you have to get married. They passed marriage laws. Okay, get married, have babies. Right? The movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding comes to mind, where the father of the Greek family says, get married, have babies. We heard it our whole life. My mother used to say all the time. I say, Mom, I don't know what I want to do with my life. She would go, hey, go find a nice girl, have a kids. It's natural. But here's my point, and I want to throw it over to you. Elon Musk makes a very good point, and it is interesting. It is very interesting. When you have less, it seems you want to bring more people into the it seems you want to bring more people. See, Joe, what's one thing that we know from our experience, even our experience in North Newark and North Arlington in Jersey, okay? Big families get out into the economy and bring the resources back home. That's when families, by the way, used to live in 2 and 3 family houses, okay? And they brought the resources home. One home with one mortgage was probably paid off, supporting 3 families. They didn't fear bringing more kids into the world. You know who fears, Joe? And I'll throw it over to you. Bringing more kids into the world? Selfish, prosperous people. That's who.
You touched on a few things. I want to talk about Elon Musk, and then it'll bridge it. Elon Musk is looking at history. That's smart, because history repeats itself. People should study leaders and study history, because errors are repeated. He's right there. Number 2, another very valid point, which you're talking about. Prosperity breeds less children. Why? Because prosperity brings comfort. Comfort makes people soft. And those are the people who do not want to sacrifice and have children. Because let's be honest, children are expensive. Children mean, in most cases, you cannot have the luxury items which you could have if you didn't have them. And children make you suffer and sacrifice. And soft people, prosperous people, and people who are in bed with comfort do not want that. And he's spot on. And that is where the West is. Another very valid point is a negative birth rate, and people should look this up. It's going on in Europe, in Italy, in Russia.
Italy's actually the worst, I think, right now.
When you have a negative birth rate, means you don't have the population to fill the necessary roles to keep your society going. For instance, you need someone to pick up the garbage. You need someone to be a doctor. You need someone to be a dentist. You need someone to be a teacher. When people aren't having kids, the society becomes old. And frankly, you can't even take care of your old because they outnumber the young.
Right.
And that's a danger to a society. And he's touching on that too. There have been societies, one of which is China. They're encouraging people. For too long, they had a one-child policy. They're encouraging families to have more kids because they
Now
know
they've
they
gone
have
to 2. The last time I checked, they went to 2, okay? Because these are things like, I'm so glad you brought that up. And by the way, if anybody wants to see a great conversation on the evil of the CCP, of Xi Jinping, of Mao Zedong, the hero of the left, go watch Joe and my interview. It's on X, it's on Rumble, it's on YouTube, and it's on Facebook, okay? And our interview with Stephen Mosher from the Population Research Institute, and he'll clear a lot of the fog.
Let me just bridge that. This is the dilemma of the reality which Elon Musk just put out there. And it is reality. And by the way, the elites know that. They're not dumb. They know that. But they don't have a large part because they feel that it's affecting and that is their God. You see, rocking a horse. They believe in depopulation. These are not my words, these are theirs. However, they know that a society can't function if it has a negative birth rate. You see, they're caught between their own religion, their own dogma. And that is another thing that people should be aware of. They are absolutely against children because they believe people, especially, by the way, regular people who don't have a superior IQ or superior wealth, these are not my words. Listen to the language coming out of the WEF. That means you. That means people in Africa. That means people in Asia. That means people in India. And all of the aid that the United States gives to these countries are dependent upon the fact that they push contraception to lower the birth weight. It's nothing more than eugenics rebranded. We see that with Planned Parenthood in America. All the Planned Parenthood clinics, where are they? In African American and in Latino communities. And they sell it as if they're doing them a favor. Mind you, the elites, they're not in their neighborhoods. Yeah. They're in other people's neighborhoods.
I said this last week. I said, you get one of these elites, these elitist fathers of a big family, lots of kids, daughter comes home 15 years old, daddy, I'm pregnant, I want to have an abortion. He's going to go, absolutely not. We have kids. Abortion and killing babies, that's for the dark people. That's for the low IQ people. We have big families.
I agree with you, Joe, but you know something? To a degree, I don't, because they don't want kids. A lot of these people.
No, I think you're missing. I think you're missing my point. I'm talking about, Joe, very wealthy, oligarchic families. They want the big families. They do. They do.
The blue bloods,
because they want the wealth for themselves and their families and their posterity, and to hell with everybody else.
Well, there's definitely that. I mean, I actually worked with an elite Indian a while ago. Like, you know, obviously he knew I'm not going to go to HR. He actually said that to me straight out.
What
he said, it culls the population. Abortion culls the population. He said that to me straight out.
Maybe they should have a conversation with Stephen Mosher the way we did, because he's blown up that whole narrative.
Joe, and he at least had the courage because, you know, I'm not going to run to HR. That's not who I am. And he, you know, we're just talking.
So you're from North. You're not a cheese eater.
No. But my point is, that's what a lot of people are thinking without saying it. And and here's another thing. They believe, and we had that clip on last week, that too many people are hurting the environment. We have to depopulate to maintain the earth. These are not my words. But what Elon Musk is saying is you can't maintain society without people.
That's right.
That's reality. It's reality. And their model not only destroys civilization, but it's anti-human. It's nothing more than the people that are necessary, who are in the lower classes, are nothing more than a slave state to serve them.
But they also want to turn those people into, that's why you have now a transhumanist.
Exactly.
Okay. Because they're going to make you a combination of human and machine, and you're only meant, and this is according to Yuval Harari, because he's basically said you have no rights. You have no rights, okay? Because you believe that makes you feel good, that your rights come from God. You have no rights. A combination of man and machine to do one thing that serves one purpose. It is to serve them. They want, Joe, there's another thing I think we covered a couple weeks ago. The whole gene therapy movement. These people think that through science, they're going to be able to come up with a way that they could live forever. That George Soros, and by the way, he looks like he's dead already. So with his money, he's got all those researchers trying to keep him alive, so the technology catches up and he'll still be alive to reverse the aging process. Joe, this is not science fiction. They believe they could do that, and I would remind them of the novel Frankenstein. Be careful what it is you're looking to create. But they
ultimately,
actually
it's
believe
a losing
that science.
game. No, I know that. I know that because they don't believe in God.
Oh,
Joe.
that goes without saying.
I mean, but when you don't believe in God, your heaven is here. But here's the bad news: this ends. Even the richest person, even the most healthy person, it ends. And they're not living in reality. That's ridiculous.
Well, to them,
that's
I would say that it is. They, in fairness, Joe, and you're exactly right. In fairness, they believe that you and me, Catholic men, anybody who's actually religious on any serious level, you're delusional. That they are rooted in reality. They believe they are.
Well, they could call me delusional, but I could also say, George, you're going to die. And what you're trying to do has been tried since Ponce de Leon with the Fountain of Youth.
The Fountain of Youth,
then,
yeah.
And it's not going to work now.
Right.
So who's the delusional one? Like, George, you're going to die. And they're not facing a fact, because frankly, that fact scares the hell out of them. Because the party ends, guys. The party ends.
Well, see, and I think that a Soros, let's call him a Soros type, that type of person would say, I don't know when it's going to end, but I think through science, I can extend my life until that inevitable end happens. I don't believe in your God. I go into the ground. I'm dust. I'll never exist again. So it's like Jim Morrison said after the live version of Roadhouse Blues. He goes, hey man, I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to get my kicks before the whole shitstorm comes down. And that's not a joke. That's kind of their attitude. It's all about getting my kicks before the end comes. And they might even acknowledge an end, Joe, but they don't care because, like you said, they don't believe in an afterlife. They don't believe in any consequences. They don't believe in justice, okay, or any sort of justice. You know who else, by the way, does not believe in justice?
That President Trump incited an erection.
His various cases of, he's got charges of inciting an erection.
Donald John Trump incited the erection.
They didn't like Donald Trump. They said he participated in an erection.
So I wonder, Joe, now I don't have to wonder what the women have on their mind, because perhaps that's exactly what they have on their mind. But Jake Tapper, Chuck Schumer, knows they can't get it out of it. Like, how do you make that mistake that many times? But here's my point. We were talking about, Joe, justice and the idea. Let's get serious for a second. And the idea of justice is rooted in the natural law. You know that if you see an innocent person being killed, you know without anybody telling you, okay, directly, whether it's God or the church, you know that it's wrong. You know it because the natural law is written in your heart. And you know intuitively the person perpetrating that evil is going to have a moment of justice, okay? And I'm going to say this about Trump. I'm really, in the last few weeks, very disappointed with him. I'm going to vote for him because the other party is insane. I'm not voting for Robert F. Kennedy because I think that's trap, okay? So I'll end up voting for Trump. But here's the thing. What they're doing to him is a straight up injustice. In America, they've never done this to anybody, ever. There's not one documented case where they did what they're doing to him, whether it's Letitia James, Fannie Willis, or anybody in between. They've never, and this is a severe injustice. And here's what I meant by the natural law. Every one of them, Joe Rossinello, is going to get justice. Justice will be served in all this, and I believe that.
Ultimately, there's 30% of the population that doesn't care. They drank the Kool-Aid. This is their tribe, and they're going to vote for Joe Biden. As Bill Maher has said, and these are his words, not mine, I would vote for Joe Biden's head in blue liquid before I voted for Donald Trump. And there are many people who feel the same way. That's 30%, but you don't need them. We have to appeal to the other 70%. And here is the appeal. This is not about Donald Trump. This case is completely bogus. It is absolutely about one thing and one thing only: power. It has nothing to do with justice, and your hatred of Donald Trump is like cutting your own nose off to spite your face, because everything they say that Donald Trump has done, they're doing, and everything they say that Donald Trump will do, they're going to do. For one, they have destroyed our country. The rule of law means nothing, and Donald Trump is the poster boy for it. This case is bogus. It has been bogus from the Russian collusion to every single one of the ridiculous attempts to get him out of office, to saying that he was on a horse basically charging on January 6th, the worst day in the history of America. All of it is ridiculous. To your point, Joe Pasillo, is Donald Trump the perfect candidate? No. Is he my guy? No. Is he the better of the two? There is not even a debate.
The better of the three. I'm going to say the
It's
better
not
of
even
the
a
three.
debate. It's not even a debate. And Bill, we had last week, who was it? Bill, what the hell, the old attorney general.
Bill Barr. Bill Barr.
Bill Barr hates Donald Trump. They have a personal issue with each other. Yet Bill Barr says, I'm voting for Donald Trump because you know why? He's an adult. And he said,
and the other side is
not about me.
Right.
And people have to put, because this is not about Donald Trump anymore. What people have to get through their thick head is if they can do this to Donald Trump, the other political side, when the pendulum swings, can do this to you.
Right.
And that's why we have a constitution.
Right, but remember, Joe,
we have a rule of law.
But Joe, that's why a fair media is something that they loathe and is hateful to them.
Well,
because with a fair media,
fair.
Real quick, Joe, with a fair media, when the time comes that Republicans won't do it because Republicans have no balls. But aside from that,
you see, you're wrong. The Republicans know they're the controlled opposition. They're the control, Joe. They know exactly what they're doing. People actually think that, you see, you're thinking like the system's real. You have to get that out of your head. The Republicans are controlled. So Mike Johnson is
not because not because I care if you tell me I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm missing what you're saying.
What I'm saying is it's not about that they don't have courage. They know that they can't do that. Mike Johnson.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. What I meant was that if they did have the stones to do that, the problem is the media is so.
Joe, let me just finish. The system doesn't allow it.
No, I'm giving you a hypothetical. I'm just giving you a hypothetical.
But
I'm
that's-
saying if they did have the stones to do it to the other side, the media is the most important factor.
But this is the whole thing. The system, the way it works, the media is the most important factor. But even like Fox is the controlled opposition. Mike Johnson, the Christian conservative, sells out. Why? Because he knows that he either goes along or gets rolled. He's smart. He gets it. The people don't. People actually watch him and actually think he's conservative. He gets it, Joe.
Joe, I did too. Before this guy became Speaker of the House, I thought he was a great guy.
In the last 4 years, my eyes have been opened, actually, and that's what I'm trying to do for other people. They're none of them. It's not about balls. It's not about being feckless. It's about they get it and we don't. We don't have a system that works for people anymore. We simply don't. And ultimately, we have to get it back. And people have to see that. And the extremes, sadly, Joe, won't talk to each other. They're pig-headed. The people on the right and the people on the left. The more pig-headed you are, by the way, you're both in the same boat sinking. And you're both going to starve.
But Joe,
starve.
But Joe, when the other extreme is like this.
They don't have their orders ready. They don't know what to do.
Buddy, this isn't World War II. You're taking cover like you're getting hit with mortar rounds. You're at Starbucks. Like, just make their little caramel drizzle frappy whatever flip-flop.
And they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard.
Kid, I got a full mustache and beard. You got somebody's armpit hair glued onto your face.
That kid is just a victim. It's sad. That's a sad child. I have nothing but pity. Probably comes from a broken home. Probably comes from a horrible situation. Healthy families don't produce that kid.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. Our society is collapsing. And by the way, it works for the elites because they're behind walls. That's how it is in a lot of the world, Joe. It never used to be like that here. It's going to get that way. And we have to get the system back. Then we'll have an abortion debate. Then we can have the debate when the abortion debate is real. Right. Mike Johnson, that's why the Republicans are for abortion, because it's a loser. And they know it. And they don't care.
Yeah.
And they don't care. And they're not conservative. And they get it. By the way, Mike Johnson is going to walk away a multi-millionaire.
Oh, forget it.
But this is what he gets. And too many people sit down and watch Fox News and actually think it's real. They actually think Jesse Waters, know why? Because all they want to do is be affirmed in their own little microcosm of a world. We have to see past the talking.
Well, we do, and we're trying to
raise. That's what we have to communicate to people. In my opinion.
And I'll be honest with you, I not because it's just you and me. I'm not saying, I'm really not, Joe, because I always said the same thing. The reason why, and by the way, I just have to say, hang on one sec. I just got to say, Antonella Marconi. She says, Joe and Joe, I love your show. Thank you, Antonella. And everybody in the chat room really tonight is great. No, Joe, listen, at the end of the day, I agree with you 1,000%. And I, by the way, I just to clarify, I'm totally on board with you when it comes to the fact that the Republicans, they have been, I will agree with you on this. I have been sucked in a lot of times.
So have I.
Just to be let down. Mike Johnson was one of them. He was one of them. Like, he was one of those guys that funny enough, you know who one of the only guys is in the Congress, in the House or Senate that has, I believe, never let me down. But he doesn't really have the power that we wish he did, is Rand Paul.
There's a handful of them. I'll agree with you. I'll give you another one. I don't agree with him at all, but he's an independent voice, is Bernie Sanders. I don't like him. And politically, as a human, I don't hate him, but I disagree with him. He's an independent voice. I'm telling you, you can't be an independent voice the way the system is structured because it's think, speak.
Right.
I'm like you have to, a group speak. You have to do it with the crew. And this is, I'm telling you, we have to get the country back. Like, however that works. And ultimately, again, I'm looking at history. India, Czechoslovakia, Poland recently. They did it. They did it without violence, and people were united through pain. I'm trying to mitigate that because, Joe, when I'm talking about pain, it's going to be everyone.
Right.
It's going to be, you can't have a car, Joe Pasillo. You or your wife. You can't afford a car. I'll ramp it up. Milk costs $10 a gallon. 10. You go to the store for 2 bags of food, it's $200. You see, that's pain.
Jay,
That
Joe, the only thing that's crazier than
The guy has any brains at all. First of all, he's a drunk, then he's a junkie. Now I don't know what's worse. Don't ask me, ask Sullivan. And what happens? He calls me up and he says, hey man, I got busted in the border. I need $5 grand bail, you know? Wait a second. I said $5 grand, man. I said, hey man, I've never even seen $5,000 in my life. So don't ask me for it, man. Why don't you ask your...
That's right. But that's it. And
well,
this is what I'm trying
is what he
to
says.
just
He goes,
avoid.
hold on. He keeps going.
No, but we have to. This is what I don't want that to happen.
No.
And but this is what happens. And until, because Joe, they don't. You can look. Let's look at the border crisis. Why don't the Republicans fix the vote? Right now in America, right now, we still have mail-in ballots. There's no COVID. You don't have to show ID. Ballot harvesting is legal, and so are ballot drop boxes. Why?
Right. Why?
We're going to facilitate foreigners to vote. Foreigners are going to determine the American election.
Right.
Okay. Why don't the Republicans do anything? Well, they know they're smarter than me, and they see it because it's going to lower the wages of the working poor, which makes them richer. So they don't care. So who is the common enemy? Your neighbor who doesn't agree with you on the climate. Okay, we'll agree to disagree when both of you are going to starve.
Right.
Both of you are not going to be able to put fuel in your car. You see, this is where we have to put that aside for a minute, kind of look each other in the face and kind of say, you can't eat and neither can I.
See, but my problem,
how about we get the country back? And then we'll have our discussion.
Well, listen, I will say the same thing that I always say here at the front line with Joe and Joe, and then we're going to let everybody go. Please, if you like this video, ultimately, Joe, the same people that don't do anything now, when the pain that you're describing, and I believe you, and I think you're absolutely correct, because if you look at one group of people after another all through human history, when they turn away from God, when they turn away from objective morality, when they turn away from family, when they turn to selfishness, when they turn to idolatry, what happens? Not some really, really bad things happen. Now, here's the thing. Those same people, when the pain comes, those are the ones that are going to be crying to God, why are you not helping me? And God's answer is going to be, but I tried. I reached out to you to come to your senses. Let me finish, Joe. To come to your senses, to recognize the path you are on is the wrong one, and straighten them right in that ship. Okay?
I agree.
Now, unfortunately, okay, you're going to have to come out of the other end a little bit more humbled. Joe, I got one. You have it for the final
Well,
word.
let me just say this. I agree with everything you said, and that's where the Great Awakening needs to happen. The answer to America and Western civilization is just that. Many intellectuals are saying this. I read this constantly, and first things I hear it. The Great Awakening. That's why Cardinal Burke is having that novena for 9 months. If you read the novena, that's what it's all about. It's appealing to Our Lady to open the eyes of many who don't see. Because it's through the Great Awakening, not the Great Orange Man, that America will be saved, that France will be saved, that Italy will be saved, that Canada will be saved, that Australia will be saved. Our eyes have to open, and pain has a way of doing that. You see, you could speak very clearly to people. You could be logical. You could tell them something. It's like talking to a drug addict. It could be your best friend. He's injecting poison into his veins, and you're like, Bill, you're going to die. He'll yes you, and then he'll go out and buy it. But ultimately, when you get to the point of death, when you actually feel it, when it's you and the person you disagree with and you can't eat, then maybe eyes start to open. People start to listen. Wow, I have to change. Wow, this didn't work. And that's what has to happen. That's the answer. I'm trying to prevent that. Joe, my hand up, because I'm going to be suffering with them. I'm not part of the circle. I don't want my children. I do this show for my kids. I'm going to be gone. My kids have to deal with this. My grandkids have to deal with this. And every single person should feel that responsibility. Too many people could give a flying crap.
Well, here's the thing.
It's not going to be me. Well, it's going to be your kids.
I know, and I wish people would understand that. Joe, I'm going to leave you with this, and I would ask everybody to stick around. I'm going to play a clip, the final 2 minutes. Just stick around. I think it's a very important clip for everybody to see. Joe, I'll give you a little biblical reference. I hope we're not going to end up like the Canaanites. I hope we end up like the Ninevites, who actually repented when Jonah went and talked to the king. And they repented, and God spared them, okay? Whereas he did not spare the Canaanites because they did not listen. The Ninevites did. I hope America listens. Joe Rossinello, always a great conversation with you, my brother. Literally my brother. Joe's my brother-in-law. And if you like our show at the Front Line with Joe and Joe, we go live Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Rumble, X, Facebook, and YouTube. Hey, we have some really, really, really good interviews. Some of them might be too Catholic for some of you out there, but some of them are on broader topics, okay, which you might like. So if you go on any one of our pages, we post all of our videos there. And we would encourage you that if you like those videos, please share them with your friends. We had a great audience. I'm sorry I didn't get to the shout outs tonight. Janice and Antonella and everybody in the chat room. But we really appreciate it. But start to spread the word. I think Joe and I are having some pertinent conversations. Some things where we're encouraging people. Maybe we're encouraged because all of you good people are listening to us. But at the end of the day, we think we're doing the right thing. So, and remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere.
America. 25 ways the U.S. is being destroyed in under 2 minutes. 1. Open borders and illegal immigration. 2. Rampant crime and unsafe cities. 3. Mass addiction and fentanyl. 4. Election insecurity and interference. 5. The educational indoctrination of children. 6. The asymmetrical weaponization of justice. 7. The destruction of private property rights. 8. Inflation and debt. 9. The global depopulation agenda. 10. Record low fertility and plummeting birth rates. 11. Unaccountable federal bureaucracies. 12. Toxic food supply. 13. Vaccine and pandemic disinformation. 14. The trans contagion and sterilization of children. 15. Overprescription of pharmaceuticals. 16. Destruction of the nuclear family and parental rights. 17. DEI and the new racism. 18. Moral and societal decay. 19. The financing of endless foreign wars. 20. The sprawling surveillance state. 21. The centralization and consolidation of government power. 22. The destruction of trust in institutions. 23. The censorship industrial complex. 24. State media propaganda. 25. The smearing of those who challenge it.